Greetings, my fellow free low sovereign thinkers. This is LL3's newest podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful Swampy Mangoes of South Florida. And today's date, Monday, August 20th, 2018. So let us begin. Greetings to all you friends out there around the world and beyond. Today is, of course, Monday. I'd like to wish Congressman Ron Paul a happy birthday. Yes, the person I supported twice as president. Still inspired, but never hired. That's right. That's why I like to see a lot of these clowns that they're trying to pay people off for their campaign, which many of us during that time volunteered and have no regrets. Use our own money. And you know what? And we did our donations, plus supporting our fellow comrades within that revolution movement. Ron Paul revolution movement, to be exact. So, hats off to him and many others out there. If you were born in the state, happy birthday to you also. Yes, and just been scoping around. And I know Bank of America and Citibank got shunned by the Bank Commission of Louisiana. Because they want to pressure people that are firearms manufacturers and all that, trying not to get loans from the Operation Choking Point, which the Democrats' Lord and Savior Barack Bendover Bob Obama done on his executive order. Operation Choke Point or Choking Point, one of those areas. So yeah, go to freemouthpost.com for more information on that. It was total blowback. I think every state in the union should give them the big middle finger. Bank of America and Citibank. This is why I am not too crazy about these big corporate banks. They're going to run our lives. They use a form of Hamiltonianism at its best. If you don't know more about Hamiltonianism, read Hamilton's Curse. Go to any library, go online. You'll be surprised how much Alexander Hamilton was a real snake in the grass. And plus, Thomas Jefferson's nemesis, to be exact. All right. So I'm just trying to flip-flop, scramble around what I'm going to be talking about. So I decided to do some interesting stuff here. And mainly this one here came from The Verdict, come out today by Joseph Margolis. And this is entitled "The More Things Change, Donald Trump and the National Security State." Shortly after President Trump took office, I wrote a column that traced the evolution of the post-9/11 national security state from Bush to Obama and offered some predictions about what this world might look like under President Trump. Now, with Trump's first midterm elections approaching, I thought it was a time to revisit those predictions and hazard a new set in light of intervening events. As I wrote before, Bush and Obama responded to the threat of transnational Islamic terror with a combination of ideology and technology, particularly during the first 4 years of the neoconservative ascendancy in the Bush administration led it to favor the neoconservative ascendancy in the Bush administration led favor, I said it twice, good grief, favor a prominent muscular U.S. presence abroad, which in turn produced highly visible campaigns in Afghanistan and Iraq characterized by large U.S. military bases and thousands of troops in theater. Because boots on the ground inevitably led to prisoners in a cell, the Bush administration also recognized that it would be in the business of questioning suspects. Here, the unfortunate mechanism of some members of the administration led it to develop a special and untested regime rejecting the long-standing success of FBI interrogators, ginning up to the ill-advised enhanced interrogation program. By contrast, the Obama administration, which lacked the neoconservative bent of its predecessor, favored a far less visible military intelligence presence that was dispersed over much wider geographic range. Instead of massive military buildups in just a few places, the Obama administration expanded strategic partnerships with security forces in great many countries. This led to the shrink the U.S. presence in Iraq and Afghanistan, but replaced it with advisory relationships in places they were believed to be a radicalized Muslim population, including especially parts of Africa, Indonesia, and the Philippines. To all you Obama haters say he was a Muslim, can you explain why almost a lot of these Islamic nations, that those countries that have a population of that particular faith, despise him? So don't compare Barack Obama as a Muslim to these other countries. There's no love connection there by any means. I will continue on here. Meanwhile, advances in drone technology led the Obama administration to replace aerial bombing campaigns with what it believed to be more surgical drone strikes, while an ideological opposition to torture and dramatic advancements in surveillance technology led the administration to rely far more heavily on signal intelligence than the human intelligence favored by the Bush administration. Bombs interrogations become relatively inconsequential parts of the war on terror, while military drones and signals surveillance became ambiguous. Ain't that a truth? In my column, I predicted that Trump, despite his ferocious antipathy to all things Obama man, would largely continue the national security direction set by his immediate predecessor. Despite his vow to refill Guantanamo, for instance, I thought our island outposts would remain more symbol than substance. This has come to pass. Since he took oath of office, the prison population at Guantanamo has changed by precisely one. A single prisoner has been released. Meanwhile, two prisoners who candidate Trump would have imprisoned at Guantanamo, President Trump charged in civilian court. Salifo Saipov, an alleged ISIS sympathizer who is accused of killing 8 people when he drove a truck onto a Manhattan sidewalk, and Mustafa al-Imam, a suspect in the Benghazi attacks who was arrested by forces in Libya. Also, like his predecessor, Trump has continued to neglect the military commissions, which President Bush began with such fanfare in 2002. Long before Bush left office, the commissions had bogged down and disuse that continued throughout the Obama administration. Though he perennially attract a great deal of attention, the commissions never played a meaningful part in the war on terror. In my earlier column, I predicted they would remain an irrelevant but extravagantly expensive sideshow. Absolutely. $1.3 trillion? Oh yeah, but it's for good national security purposes. Sign it, okay. Think about that, folks. Even those Trump worshippers out there. 2 has come to pass. The military judge presiding over the commission trial of Abed Rayam al-Nashiri, for instance, suspended the trial indefinitely before announcing his retirement from the military. The case has been in limbo for virtually the entirety of the Trump administration and shows no sign of life. And just last week, the judge presiding over the trial of the alleged 9/11 hijackers delivered a serious setback to the government when he ruled that prosecutors cannot use statements made by the accused to the FBI. Military commissions are and have always been a farce that matter only to a few politicians and conservative pundits who invoke them as a reliable applause line in the partisan gatherings. Most assuredly, they serve no national security function. Likewise, the use of drones has continued to expand. Their primary use remains in military surveillance, according to a recent report by Goldman Sachs. Drone sensor technology currently in development will be able to map an area of 2.7 million square miles, nearly equal to the size of the lower 48 states, in a single flight. The accelerating use of drones as a substitute for aerial bombing has also continued. In fact, given their current ubiquity, it seems impossible that the first use of a militarized drone did not take place until February 2002, when the CIA launched an unsuccessful drone attack against Osama bin Laden. In the Trump administration, the military has begun experimenting with cluster drones that, as reported by one observer, communicate autonomously with each other and use collective decision-making to coordinate movements, find the best way to get to a target even flying in formation and healing themselves, all without a human telling him how. Telling them how. Wow. There seems no question that this movement toward unmonitored drone strikes will only continue. Can we say Terminator? Then there is a surveillance state. The Obama administration embraced surveillance as an alternative to interrogations in my column. I predicted the Trump administration would enthusiastically follow suit. Indeed, it has. Like its predecessor, the Trump administration has made aggressive use of Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, which authorized warrantless surveillance of foreign targets abroad. In addition, as chronicled by the Electronic Frontier Foundation, the Trump administration has been an active participant in accelerating the international campaign to make surveillance data more widely available, more easily shared among national security services around the world. Yet, because I was focused on the Trump administration, I underestimated the growth of the surveillance state in a critical respect. I had foreseen the extent to which local and state governments would embrace surveillance as a panacea. The use of facial recognition technology, for instance, is now widespread. In an age when school shootings are all too common, even public school systems are adapting facial recognition software. Real Networks, the online streaming company, recently offered the software to public schools for free. Ain't that nice? God bless the New World Order. Precisely. In addition, dramatic events in technology over the past several years have created the prospect of facial recognition in real time. The companies that make these systems boast that their software will allow government to monitor the whereabouts of an entire country more or less without instantaneously. Though there have been early adopters of facial recognition, American police departments have thus far resisted the real-time software. That day, however, when an entire population can be surveilled from cameras mounted throughout a location, whenever there be a single neighborhood, a train station, or airport, an entire city, the length of an international border, etc., do not seem far off. The potential threat to the privacy seems obvious. In some, the national security state under President Trump looks a great deal like the national security state under President Obama, only expanded. I believe past is prologue. It's prologue. The use of drones and global surveillance will continue to increase. The use of detentions, interrogations, and trials will continue to decline because the public seizes upon what can be seen terrorism trials and high-profile interrogations on the rare occasions when they occur. Will probably continue to play a symbolic role, but all the real work in the war on terror, as Dick Cheney predicted in 2001, will take place in the shadows and invisible to the public. In time, no one will consider it unusual that cameras perch above us everywhere we go, monitoring each of us in real time. No one will give the drones that buzz around us a second thought. No one will recall the day that was any different and the time we used to mark as a departure from the past with the designation post 9/11 will simply be our normal. I leave the implications of this to another day. Yes, and just to let you know, he is a professor of law and government at Cornell University, and he's right. You cannot argue with him on that. More things change and more stay the same. For all you Trump worshippers out there, you need to pay attention as well, including the Trump haters. You're gonna go after him on this. You should be going after your predecessors and all the people in Congress as well that endorses warrantless surveillance programs, including Ted Deutsch, dumbed down Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and you can say Robert DeSantis, Congressman DeSantis, who's running for governor of Florida. Oh, he's pro Second Amendment, but he's pro surveillance. He was in the Florida Constitution. He's against Article 1, Section 12 of the Florida Constitution. So those are the questions you gotta ask. Okay, call them out. Even the ones that support them. You gotta go after these individuals. If you're gonna expect for another Lord and Savior, you're in a wet dream. I guarantee you that. That's the damn truth. Plain and simple. Yeah, I'm real critical of Donald Trump in these areas as well. I'm not gonna go, oh, he does no wrong. Come on, if he burns the American flag, oh, the greatest patriot in history. That's all the worshipers out there will do for him. Come on. Same as the Obamanoids, for goodness sakes. Stop worshiping these individuals. It's pathetic, meek, and unmeritable. This is why, my friends, you better be paying attention. Complain's not going to do anything. Take actions will. You guys are trying to give us this bogus real ID system. Oh, to fight the war on terror. Well, it didn't work. It didn't work in one case up in Manhattan. Right, with that suspect is in the new that was on here aforementioned. Didn't do a damn thing. If you give up your freedom for security, you deserve neither. Ben Franklin's quote. If you're gonna leave all your security eggs in the hands of the government, then you're a bunch of damn fools. Whether you are naturalized or native born. That's a fact. Hey, I can tell you one thing: Sean Hannity, Mark Levin, Rachel Maddow, and what's the other asswife's name? Oh, good grief! From Harbaugh, Chris Matthews. They don't care. They want you guys to live in fear and blame it on the other guy. Blame it on their opposition. So you better think before you speak and pay attention. Like I told everybody, two of the biggest mistakes that happened in the new millennium was 9/11 and the murder of William Cooper. Because I can tell you one thing, the one world order, the cabal, the oligarchs, synonymously I'm saying this, were involved. Prove me wrong if you dare. I'm tired of this baseless merits. Not saying I'm better than everyone else, but you gotta really look at the bigger picture. Alright, so next one here, I'm having fun. This one here came out yesterday, evening. It says here, John Brennan, when I called Trump treasonous, I didn't mean trees and treason. Let's hear what this clown has to say, because remember, he lost his security clearance. All right, we'll just read what he has to say here. And this has been written by William A. Jacobson. As it reads here, former CIA Director John Brennan has been suggested for months that he has undisclosed information implicating Donald Trump is wrongdoing. I wrote about it on March 18, 2018, who elected John Brennan. Former CIA Director John Brennan, who is as anti-Trump as they come, suggested that he knew information about Trump that has not yet public. Information, of course, he would have learned in his role at the CIA or through his connections. When full extent of your venality, moral turpitude, and political corruption becomes known, you will take your rightful place as a disgraced demagogue in the dustbin of America. You may scapegoat Andy McCabe, but you will not only destroy America, America will triumph over you. This is chilling stuff. Our intelligence services scoop up an incredible amount of information about all of us. There are limits on how it's supposed to be used. But when the former director of the CIA suggests that there is undisclosed information about the president, it's an abuse of power and a not so vile threat. Brennan recently had his security clearance revoked. Senator Rand Paul suggested the move to Trump and support it. I applaud President Trump for his revoking of John Brennan's security clearance. I urge the president to do this. I filibustered Brennan's nomination to head into CIA in 2013, and his behavior in government and out of it demonstrate that he should not be allowed near classified information. He participated in the shredding of the constitutional rights, lied to Congress, and has been monetizing and making partisan political use of his clearance since his departure. A part of Brennan's irresponsible actions was his accusation Trump engaged in conduct that was nothing short but treasonous after the Trump and Putin summit in July. And this is what he says on his Twitter account. Donald Trump's press conference performance in Helsinki rises to and exceeds the threshold of high crimes and misdemeanor. It was nothing short of treasonous. Not only were Trump's comments embellic imbecilic. He is wholly in the pocket of Putin. Republican patriots, where are you? And of course, he got a bunch of 216,254 likes on this jerk-off. But I'll continue on here. Depending on who you asked, Brennan either doubled down on that accusation of treason or walked it back in an interview with Rachel Maddow. Yeah, which that person thinks she's a man. I will continue on here. Here's what Brennan said in an interview with Rachel Maddow. The transcript's linked to that and added. Emphasis added. So Maddow says to him, your criticism of Trump rises above that type. Despite of what you just articulated here, you've gone further than that. After Helsinki, you were stark and even a little bit scary in your criticism of his behavior. And you said it rose to treason. This is what he has to say. I said it says nothing short of treasonous. Of course, she says, in this current controversy, that specific comment has been singled out by a number of people as a comment that maybe by you crossed the line. That was maybe in cross what line? Freedom of speech? Woo! That's what it says on Crosstalk. Same thing, it's Crosstalk here. And of course, as I have to say here, and you know what's interesting, there's a lot of stuff. There's a big transcript here, right? Oh yeah, we continue on. What the hell? Of course, she says here, no, I'm not saying that you don't have a right to say it, but you do stand by that consideration. Can you explain? Can you elaborate what you mean by treasonous? It's a very serious allegation. And she's right. I'm not going to argue with that. I knew what the Russians did to interfere in the election. I have, you know. I'm 100% confident in what they did. And for Mr. Trump to stand on that stage in Helsinki with all the world's eyes upon him and to basically said he wouldn't, he doesn't understand why would the Russians interfere in the election. He's given Mr. Putin, the Russians, a pass time after time after time, and he keeps referring to his whole investigation as a witch hunt. As you know, bogus as you know, and to me, this was an attack against the foundational principles of our great republic, which is the right of all Americans to choose their elected leaders. I'm sorry, I'm going to keep on going here. And for Mr. Trump, so cavalierly, so dismiss that. Yes, sometimes my Irish comes out and my tweets, and I did say that it rises to and exceeds to the level of high crimes and misdemeanors, and nothing short of treason, because he had the opportunity there to be able to say to the world that this is something that happened. It should never, ever happen again. And if the Russians try at all to do it, then they're going to pay a serious price for it. I don't expect Mr. Putin to acknowledge it. He is, you know, he's going to deny. But for the President of the United States to continue to prevaricate on this issue, I think does a great injustice and a disservice to the men and women of the intelligence law enforcement community, and does a great disservice to the citizens of the United States. So, there's a link right here too about and why that I said it was nothing than treason. I didn't mean committed treason, but nothing short but treasonous. I'll continue on here. Maddow made a statement, but you didn't mean that he committed treason though. His response, I said it was nothing short of treasonous. That was the term I used, yes. That's if we diagram the sentence, nothing short of treasonous, mean it's treason. I mean the reason I'm bringing this out because is when you say, I know what the Russians did, and when you, knowing that the Russians did, observing the president's behavior, you got to word treason suggests that you think the president may be. And of course, it says here, Brennan said, the president, Maddow goes serving a foreign country rather than our own. Well, yes, I think he has crossed the line repeatedly in terms of his failure to fulfill the responsibility of the office and to look Putin square in the eye and said this should never, ever happen again. Yeah, so if you're supporting Israel, you'd be given a red carpet treatment, right? Communist clown. Because he did say he voted for the Communist Party. Brennan, do you think that he's knowingly serving the interests of the Russian government instead of the U.S. government? This is what I have to say. You know, I scratch my head a lot. I'm puzzled over why Mr. Trump acts this week with such obsequiousness to Putin, I don't know, and I'm not going to try to pretend that I know. But there is something is very disconcerting, very worrisome about how an individual who occupies the Oval Office interacts with Mr. Putin. I'm a great advocate of improving relations between Moscow and Washington. Don't get me wrong, I was a strong supporter of that during the Obama administration, and I stuck my neck out a number of times, particularly on Syria, to say no. We need to be able to work with the Russians to be able to bring this mass carnage to a halt. But time after time, the Russians, would feign sincerity better than us, better than anybody I ever known. But I do believe we need to get this behind us. I don't want this to, roil the waters forever. But we need to have a president who is going to acknowledge this and make sure that he is able to then move on. It was one thing for the curious of #the resistance to make such an outlandish accusation of treason. It is another thing, the former CIA director who at the maintained security clearance that potentially gave him access to information unknown to the public. That access gave an undeserved credibility to Brennan's punditry and political posturing. As shown below, Brennan dangled his access to national security information out before for political purposes. He won't be able to do that anymore. And that's absolutely true. So that's why I tell everyone out there, if you're going to be critical, you better have merit. Don't be a pair. Don't listen to these ass clowns either. Brennan. It was proven, according to Senator Rand Paul, he voted for the Communist Party one time. Yeah, so that's the kind of person you want in there? You got to listen to, you got to be out of your mind, folks. So that's one thing about him, he's just blowing hot air as far as I'm concerned. The man's not more than a corrupt individual. He has a lot more blood in his hands than you and I know. That's how I got to see about that. All right, this next one here came out today by the Free Thought Project. Citizens announced he's running against corrupt sheriff. His home is raided, wife kidnapped. Spread the love, of course. Clayton County, Georgia, in the land of the free, practicing democracy is often futile and even more often highly corrupt. Illustrating the corrupt nature of this process is a case out of Georgia, in which a sheriff with a history of alleged criminal activity is accused of harassing, intimidating, and even arresting innocent people who challenge his authority. Oh, he's that special, right? A glamour man with a badge. August 10th, Robert Halls, a former deputy with the Clayton County Sheriff Department, announced that he would be running against an incumbent Sheriff Victor Hill. Days later, police would be in his home kidnapping his wife. This sounds like an effort to intimidate a potential political opponent, which is, in my mind, not an appropriate use of law enforcement powers. Harvey Newman, professor emeritus at the Andrew Young School of Policy Studies at Georgia State University, told AJC, we want the people to feel able to speak truth to power. But this appears to be an effort to, if not silence that, to at least intimidate us. After Halls announced his desires to seek Hill's job, Halls says that's when Hill went on the offensive, sending out emails to disparage Hall's son, accusing them of stealing their father's department-issued gun in 2014 and selling it to a pawn shop. Halls said the accusation is untrue. I bet you if we did an open records request of the emails that came from the sheriff, there would be some nasty threats from him, he said. The only reason he's doing what he's doing is because I said I was running for sheriff. When they returned when they heard of the false claims, Gary and Halls, Robert's wife, emailed the sheriff and said, where there is love, fear cannot exist. I shouldn't have said a damn thing to that clown. For this deputy, were sent to their home to arrest Gerain for making threats to the sheriff. Oh my goodness! The PC sheriff is so sensitive. Where there is love, fear cannot exist. He is so offended and totally threatened. You weak and pathetic stooge. Is it true that you and Scott Israel are bed buddies and have wear both his and his towels, symbolically speaking? All this comes after I made the announcement I was running for sheriff. Robert says she responded because she thinks he is trying to place fear into us. As the AGC reports, Hill has an extremely corrupt and checkered past. And there's a link for that, but I'm going to read what he has to say. Hill has been a leader of the Clayton Sheriff's Office since 2013. His second go-around in the top job after running for the department from 2005 to 2008. When he was set up for re-election in 2016, he received 63% of the vote in a Democratic primary. Over the years, however, detractors have described his behavior as everything from reckless to criminal. When he first took office in 2005, he immediately fired 27 employees, placing snipers on the sheriff's department's roof as they were escorted out. Wow! He's probably sounds like this man's afraid of his own shadow. In 2012, he was accused of several counts of racketeering theft by taking and making false statements, though he would later be acquitted of all charges. In 2015, he accidentally shot a female friend while demonstrating police tactics during the date. And last year, his law enforcement certification was put on probation for 2 years by the Georgia Peace Officers Standards and Training Council. This year, he has been linked to Mitzi Beckers, a Clayton Sheriff's chaplain who was indicted in April in connection to the bribery scandal at Atlanta City Hall. Charges against her include witness tampering, wire fraud, and money laundering. Ronnie Williams, a former Clayton Sheriff's Office chaplain, experienced a similar fate to Jerian after he emailed the sheriff noting his evil agenda. After the email, he took out a warrant for Williams' arrest as well. Williams told AJC that he could predict Jerian's arrest after her husband's announcement, and as this is the sheriff's normal tactic. I saw it coming. That's just how he operates, said Williams, who was at the courthouse Thursday to support Gary and Hawes. You give him a little bit of bait, the snake will stick his head out because he does not have any self-control. That's just what he does. Indeed, as the videos show, the sheriff will have his minions allegedly silence anyone who attempts to dethrone him. You know what? I'll tell you one thing. This guy is a total stooge based on this article. And I can tell you this, my friends. If you have a recall clause in your state constitution or your statutes, use it on a clown like him. I guess him and Scott Israel probably married couples, that what we know. Huh. You know how that goes. Birds of a feather flock together. Good grief, this is downright unacceptable. And arresting people for standing up for what's right. He's the terrorist, my friends, in Clayton County. That's the douchebag. That's the ungrateful SOB you need to take out. You have those obligations to overthrow him. Without you guys, he's nothing. Plain and simple. I'm tired of these people think they're more powerful than everybody else because they got a badge or they're within a governmental entity. No, it doesn't work like that. Take your racketeering propaganda and stick it. Call him Rico Man, the Rico sheriff. Because remember, he needs you more than you need him. Because the fact is this, my friends, even in Clayton County, the sheriff's office aren't obligated to protect you as an individual. Sovereign immunity and tort liability of Georgia statutes. Look it up. All right. So, that's one of those things you got to really focus on and look at the bigger picture. Yeah, so I'm going to hit this next one here, my friends. And this was pretty interesting. This one here is from consortiumnews.com. And it came out yesterday. Religious divisions threaten to further inflame Ukrainian civil war. Not meaning the head of the Russian Orthodox Church to Kyiv is like barring the Pope from Rome. But that is just what the U.S.-backed Ukrainian government has done, explains Dmitry Babich. So what Mr. Babich has to say, during the American Civil War, in which 620,000 people were slaughtered on the battlefields alone and hundreds of thousands more injured, the organization of the Roman Catholic Church in the North and South remained united throughout the war and after. I call it the illegal war. I'll continue on here. The same cannot be said for the 4-year civil war in Ukraine, which has deepened existing divisions among Orthodox Christians in the country. Tensions are rising to the point that the Ukrainian government has been accused of suppressing celebration of their 1030th anniversary of the coming of Christianity to ancient Rus, a proto-state of Eastern Slavs, which included territories of modern Ukraine, Russia, and Belarus. The government is being blamed for involvement in an effort to eliminate an original historic church of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church of the Moscow Patriarchate, which is UOCMP, because of its affiliation with Russia and the word Moscow in its name. The UOCMP currently includes more than 12,000 of about 18,000 parishes in Ukraine, and is headed by Ukrainian Metropolitan on Nufrius under the higher spiritual authority of Patriarch Kirill of Moscow and all Rus seated in Moscow. On July 27th, a solemn march celebrating the 1030th anniversary of the baptism of Rus by Prince Vladimir the Great Kiev in 988 AD drew 250,000 faithful of the UOCMP in Kiev, despite the attempt to sabotage it by a U.S.-backed Ukrainian government of President Petro Poroshenko, according to numerous testimonies by UOCMP's priests. Published in the Ukrainian press, transportation was cut off from outlying parishes and believed they were intimidated. State knows best. That's usually how that goes, right? But if we believe the government, these actions weren't a suppression of religion, but rather they required a specific situation. The Poroshenko regime formed in the beginning of the civil war that followed the U.S.-backed 2014 bloody coup in the Euromaidan uprising, is favoring a split-off of the traditional church by an anti-Moscow church known as the Ukrainian Orthodox Church of the Kiev Patriarchate, or UOCKB, headed by the self-proclaimed leader named Patriarch Filaret, born Denisenko. Denisenko, a former cleric of the Moscow Patriarchate, left UOCMP in 1992, following the collapse of the Soviet Union. He had lost an ecclesiastical election and tried to form his own church. Denisenko was then excommunicated, his church not recognized by any of the other members of the international community of Orthodox churches. There is no single authority in the Orthodox churches similar to the Roman Catholic Pope. Rather, there are independent and auto-Salafistic regional patriarchs considered equal in authority with the Ecumenical Patriarch Bartholomew of Istanbul, formerly Constantinople, regarded as first among equals primus inter pares, primarily for historic reasons because Constantinople, before it took over by Turks in 1453, was the center of the Orthodox Christianity. None of these Orthodox patriarchates recognized either the UOCKP or Patriarch Filaret Denisenko. But now the Poroshenko government, together with Denisenko, is moving to reverse that situation. They called an ecumenical patriarch Bartholomew in Istanbul to remove authority of the Moscow Patriarchate and recognize a new single independent Orthodox church in Ukraine, serving all ties to Moscow. Yes, you hear the drill. Oh, you hear someone blowing something up there. That's okay. You gotta let's do their thing here. The single church in the Poroshenko-Denisenko plan will carry the UOCKP name with the authority to Denisenko to seize all churches, temples, chapels, monasteries, and other properties belonging to the UOCMP. Yes, they don't want to seize it. It would mean dispossessing the historic UOCMP, which has a direct apostolic continuity with the 1030-year-old original Kievan Church and Christianity in the Eastern Roman Empire, once brought there by Christ's own disciples. UOCMP said they would not pray in church together with their excommunicated Denisenko. Russian Patriarch Kirill, speaking in Moscow at the celebration of the 1030th anniversary of Vladimir's baptism of Rus, warned against attempts by secular authorities in Ukraine to interfere with the church affairs or to split the historic church. Orthodox faithful inside Ukraine, both ethnic Russians and ethnic Ukrainians, see the plans of Poroshenko's government and Denisenko's as an illegal assault on their tradition and heritage, religious heritage. In addition, some deputies in Ukrainian Rada parliament have warned that there could be bloody consequences if the properties of the UOCMP are confiscated and its members forced to join the new church. With the decision from Bartholomew expected next month, events took an important turn with the announcement of a planned August 31st meeting between Patriarch Kirill of the Russian Orthodox Church, ROC, and the Ecumenical Patriarch in Istanbul. It's like a little tongue twister here. Sorry about that, folks. The announcement was made in early August, though the ROC's press service, which called an upcoming meeting of a very important talk between the two patriarchs. Though the Messianical Patriarch doesn't play the same role as the Pope in the Roman Catholic Church, Bartholomew is nothing less in a make-or-break position. All Russian and all of Ukraine will be anxiously watching that meeting, especially after tensions that surrounded the UOC's MP celebration of Kiev of the 1030th anniversary of Christianization. The core issue is that Russian and Ukrainian believers have belonged in the same church since Russian conversion to Christianity in 988 AD. Against this powerful tradition, the government authorities in Kiev are spreading fear against the UOCMP among some Ukrainian Orthodox believers that has been unheard of since Christianity was de facto rehabilitated in 1988 in the former Soviet Union during the celebration of the 1000th anniversary of the baptism. The 1000th anniversary celebration took place under Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev, who broke the 70 years of long tradition of enforced atheism in the Soviet Union. The USSR has one legal Russian organized Orthodox Church, persecuted by Stalin, Khrushchev, and Brezhnev. The same that had existed in the Russian Empire, toppled by Bolsheviks in 1917. Church leaders say Ukraine's government cannot erase the United Church's history, which goes back to Prince Vladimir and to apostolic times. According to a new historical record, the baptism of Kievan Rus by Vladimir had support and participation of the Greek Church in Constantinople. Yeah, okay, that's how you do it. That's how you pronounce it. Then the official church of the U.S. of the Eastern Roman Empire, later known as Byzantium. The first Orthodox bishops and metropolitans, equivalent to the Western archbishops in the Russian, were Greeks from Constantinople who got their apostolic succession from Christ's disciples. This is interesting here. I'm just the petition to UNESCO Patriarch Bartholomew to approve the intervention of a new united Ukrainian church that eliminates the UOCMP would violate the sacred apostolic succession, says the Moscow Patriarchate. The UOCMP has also protested that neither Poroshenko nor the Rada are empowered to ask Bartholomew to change the church's organization in Ukraine. the strength of the Russian Orthodox Church and its Ukrainian sister UOCMP lies in the apostolic succession, which the current Ukrainian government can neither provide nor imitate. The Russian Orthodox Church spokesman said the state cannot create a church, nor should it aspire to do it. But this is exactly what the Ukrainian authorities are trying to do, urging the Ukrainian Orthodox Church to merge with Denisenko's entity and asking from a municipal patriarch in Constantinople and autocephalous status for the new united Ukrainian church of their own invention. The initiative is an abuse of power and an interference of the state into church affairs, UOCMP, the spokesman said. The UOCMP has remained the only public organization in Ukraine which is still legally has the word Moscow in its name. And for millions of Ukrainian citizens, ethnic Russians or not, any kind of legal linkage to Russia is still valued. That's interesting. So they want to stick their nose where they don't belong. So Kyiv moves against Russia almost immediately after seizing power in 2014. The new regime in Kyiv terminated air flights between the two countries and banished Russian television and radio from Ukraine's cable network. One of the regime at first acts wants to ban the Russian language, an extreme move that was quickly reversed, but constant attempts are made by the Ukrainian government to shut down the Russian embassy, introduce a new visa regime between Russia and Ukraine, or seal the borders, making it extremely difficult for millions of Russians and Ukrainians to see their family members. Ain't that nice? The historic role of Moscow Patriarchate has provided a spiritual and cultural link for tens of millions of people who in the 1990s suddenly became divided by newly emerged borders. In the period of the Soviet Union's collapse in 1991, the Russian church proved wiser and more flexible than the Russian state. Russian Orthodox Church then gave its periphery so much autonomy that this prevented the collapse of the whole structure, said Yevgeny Nikiforov, the head of the Orthodox orientated radio station Randones, a specialist in the Russian church history. The unified state might collapse in tears, but the church did not follow it. It remained alive and did not give up its right to cater to believers on all sides of the newly emerged borders. Even in the Soviet days, the Moscow Patriarchate allowed sister churches in Ukraine, Belarus, and Moldova to have their own budgets, to appoint their own bishops, and to run all their unearthly activities, education, manufacture church items, etc., without consulting Moscow. In return, the Russian Orthodox Church remained in Eucharistic union with them, with representatives of these churches participating in the election of the Russian Patriarch of the ROC. Believers in all of these countries were treated as equals. It seems clear why Poroshenko's regime is opposed to UACMP. The church openly condemns the ongoing civil war in Ukraine, refuses to call it the Russian aggression, and retains the word Moscow in its name. In addition, pro-government Ukrainian nationalist organizations often accuse the UOCMP of being pro-Moscow groups of separatists in priest attire. It reminds me when the Russian courts banned the Jehovah's Witnesses and the Watchtower Tract Society in their own country. Very, very similar, right? Patriarch Kirill denounced the attempts by Ukrainian authorities to divide and subdue the Ukrainian Church Orthodox MP while speaking to a convention of the world's Orthodox churches represented in Moscow on July 27th. He underscored what the attempt might by the Poroshenko government's religious takeover means and how could it further inflame the Ukrainian civil war. For our church, Kirill said, Kyiv is the same holy place as Jerusalem is for the Christians of all creeds. So you know what I gotta say? Leave them alone. Plain and simple. When you got government knows best, it turns to crap. This is pretty pathetic. And some person says, why on earth are we supposed to care about this? Catholic schism between Ukraine and Russia, the RT and Sputnik by the side, the only thing I can figure out by their choice of topics. How about some domestic news topics? If the Trump regime is serving up heaping spoonfuls of nepotism, corruption, and illegality. Well, you gotta look at this, what's called domino effect. Your tax dollars may be involved in this scandal. So think about that. Hello, have you heard of foreign aid? Precisely. I say shut all these people down, okay, with our foreign aid. And this is why you got to look at, too, they're against the Ukrainian civil war, because many people know of the, still they want to fulfill, what's that clown's name? The late and ungrateful Zbigniew Brzezinski's book entitled The Grand Chessboard? Yep. Don't be surprised if they're still trying to use that. Remember, he's a puppet government. The guy's a puppet from Kyiv, the regime themselves. So this is why they don't want free thinkers. They don't want critics. You want them to be good little boys and girls. Go, shut up. We are more holier than you. You're going to be due, as you're told, for your own good. You know what I say to the people over there? Give them the big middle finger in Jesus' name. And I don't say that in vain, because Christ will understand completely, whether if you agree with the character or not. To my fellow listeners out there. All right. We're going to do one more here. And it should be short and sweet. And it came out here from the Florida Bulldog. Came out a while back on the 16th, but it's very important. Dan Christensen said, it's time to stand up for your rights to free speech and open government. This space is usually reserved for publishing Florida Bulldog's brand of straightforward watchdog reporting on the subjects as diverse as government corruption and conflicts of interest. Inner city pastors, rail service, questionable development, and 9/11. We rarely publish opinion, but today we stand publicly with thousands of reporters, editors, and others who bring you the news to remind you, our readers, of our crucial work done by journalists on your behalf. Florida Bulldog is a dues-paying member of the Institute for Nonprofit News, INN, a network of more than 170 independent news medias and all nonprofit, nonpartisan, dedicated to strengthening the source of trusted news for thousands of communities. What follows was an important statement from INN Executive Director and CEO Sue Cross. Here's what Ms. Cross has to say. Dear friends, today the Institute for Nonprofit News joins journalists across the country in asking you, the public, to stand up for your rights to free speech and an open government. This stated as a campaign by the Boston Globe to ask the President of the United States to knock off attacking the news media. But the President's attacks on the press aren't ultimately about the press. The press is just journalists who work as your eyes and ears in places you can't be. The press is the people you send into rooms to witness what your government is doing and telling you about it. Dictators and tyrants don't want you in the room. Dictators throughout the course of history have tried to limit what their people know or create confusion is about what is true. By sowing confusion or getting you to limit your information sources, dictators reap power and control. It has happened in the 20th century. You can look up the Adolf Hitler, how he controlled the media, and of Stalin and all those other people, okay? So it doesn't matter. Don't be confused. In the U.S., we are not a dictatorship. We're a democracy. I disagree. We are a constitutional republic, but we'll continue on here. A free, fact-based press was built right into the foundations of that when the First Amendment was adopted in 1791. Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion or prohibiting the right, the exercise thereof, of abridging the freedom of speech or the press or the right of the people to peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for redress of grievances. Today, verbal and even physical attacks on media, police state tactics, and government secrecy are spreading with impunity throughout the country. In Denver and Milwaukee, police recently detained and harassed nonprofit reporters and prevent them from doing their jobs. In Wausau, Wisconsin, officials routinely keep public documents out of the public's hands, your hands. The same happens in East Lansing, San Diego, and Oregon, and on and on. We hear reports month and month out from the 170 nonprofit news media that are part of INN. The attacks of nonprofit media are particularly cannibalistic. Nonprofit newsrooms are dedicated to public service. Their reporters and editors are public servants with a mindset cops might find surprisingly close to their own. Protect and serve pretty well describes the motivation of most watchdog reporters. It is important to know that these attacks aren't launched against a national press, a liberal or conservative press, a commercial press. They are against anyone who works to bring you fair, fact-based, objective accounts so that you have reliable information and act on your constitutional rights, so that you can voice your stories, cast your votes, be informed, live freely and well. Criticism of media is fine and needed, but it is different when government officials systematically tears down the free press because they don't like the facts it reports. Then they are working to limit your ability to know what the government is doing. 13 years after we adopted the First Amendment, Thomas Jefferson wrote to John Tyler, "No experiment can be more interesting than we are now trying, and which we trust will end in establishing the fact that man may be governed by reason and truth. Our first object should therefore be to leave open to him all the avenues to truth. More effectual hereto found is the freedom of the press. It is therefore the first shut up by those who fear the investigation of their actions." He's absolutely correct. We're not going to shut up. We're going to keep reporting so you can read what you want, make your own judgments, and question a government that works for you. That's the basis of our freedom, our economy, our way of life. So don't be faked out by claims of fake news. It's out there, no doubt, but there are many more reliable news sources dedicated to reason and truth. Does the public service newsrooms that commit to high ethical standards are listed in the INN members directory, or commit to your local newspaper, radio, newscast, television broadcaster. If you think an outlet's coverage is off base, reach out and question it. Contribute news and commentary point out a mistake when they make one. Reporters and editors want to hear from you. And that's absolutely correct, because Newsbuzz does the same thing too. So please pay attention to this. The news media isn't some monolithic thing. It's a voice of your community. You can be part of it. We hope you will, because free press doesn't belong to the president, it belongs to you. And this is just an example of what's happening. And everyone thinks it's only Trump has done it. Absolutely not. It happened to a lot. It even happened during the Bush administration. We can go on and on and on. And even Operation Mockingbird, of all people, all sites, tells you total MK Ultra. So, my friends, this is why I recommend everyone out there, when you read these articles, observe responsibly. It's okay to put it out there. I know people post on Facebook on sites I don't agree with, but if there's merit, that's fine. If there's a flaw, look at it, share it, be critical in good faith. Because this is why what kind of individual I am. I can see things across the board. I don't go for the left-right paradigm. I go for right and wrong. I stand on principles, and everyone should do the same thing. Even the people you support, if they do something wrong, you have the right to criticize it. You can put a report on it. Have all your merits, your facts, concrete facts. That's when they get worried. So, and I'm not crazy about even CNN with the whole scapegoating propaganda either. All right, because they're one of the areas you have to look at. That's just how it is. But it doesn't mean people shouldn't be slaughtered. Like investigative journalists are getting killed left and right. Janet Moore was the latest one. How many more are being taken out today? Or shut up, or get thrown in prison? It's happening not just in the United States, but around the world. They're going on social media sites. They're censoring people. Like them or not is completely wrong. And I condemn it with a passion. I've been banned and can't put my content on yours.org. I want to know until further notice. What the hell is going on, yours.org? What have I done to violate your policies? I haven't heard from you in a while. So please, I recommend you respond to me as soon as possible and we can solve this matter. If not, I'll let everyone know yours.org is like Facebook. Censor anybody. Alright, that is it. I thank everyone for listening. Plus, feel free to download and share throughout your social media networks. If you have any questions and comments, or if you're sending something that's interesting, man, I want to check out, whatever you do, please address your correspondence with Decorum. You can hit me up. You can just search engine my name, Loki Luck number 3, or Loki Luck Roman numeral 3, and you get all the search engines I'm on, Facebook, Twitter, Google+, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, just give you a few. In addition, you can email me at LokiLuck3@gmail.com, or to encrypted ones with a Proton Mail account would be awesome. Loki Luck numbers 03@protonmail.com. Ooh, all right, my friends. Once again, thank you for your time. Plus, always remember that demoniac resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Keep on spreading the love. And may your guardian spirits be with you.